Hi, my name is Iskander Sanchez-Drola, and today I'm going to present Journey to the Center of the Cookie Ecosystem, Unraveling Actors, Roles, and Relationships, which is a joint work between Norton LiveLock and Eurecom. When we connect to the internet, there are multiple things that we expect to happen. Probably the most obvious one will be to obtain a lot of knowledge and information, right? But there are multiple things that are happening in the background that many people do not expect, being tracking one of the most important ones. So here's the question. Do we know who is watching us online? And I'm sorry to say that the answer is definitely no. So let's start with an example. You go to sports.com, and sports.com is loading one resource, two, three, even four resources. These resources, they can load other resources that may be from sports.com or third parties. This leads to a situation where in that page there are multiple cookies that are created and shared, but there is a problem. We don't know how these two things are connected. What we want to do in this study is to understand the cookie ecosystem, and in order to do this, we have to understand this step also. So we want to know who is the initiator, the one that initiated any of these processes, who are the intermediaries, and finally, who are the people that are creating and sharing cookies. So if we start with the creation, we can detect that one specific resource may be loaded by the page itself originally, is the one that initiated. There are two others that were working like intermediaries, that maybe there are two different companies. And finally, we have one that is the one creating the cookie. There is one interesting case that we detected here that this was not analyzed before, that we named cookie ghostwriting. That is the concept that when someone is creating a cookie, is not creating the cookie in the name of the domain of that script or that resource, but in the name of someone else. We will later explain how they do this, even with examples. Then we have the cookie sharing. So as before, we will understand who is the initiator of this process, who are the intermediaries, and finally, who is the one that is sharing the cookie. So with this methodology, we will analyze 138 million cookies in more than 6 million pages using a Chromium-based crawler. But more concretely, we analyze cookies that they have enough information to work as identifiers. And to better understand and characterize the actors involved in the process of creating and sharing cookies, we use the following main roles. We have creators, for the ones that are creating cookies, senders, the ones that are sending these cookies, the ones that they receive this information will be receivers, and finally, we'll have intermediaries that they can be part of the creation or sharing chains. So if we start with the creators, depending on the type of cookies that they create, we can further differentiate in first parties, so the main page, third parties that are externally loaded resources that are creating cookies for themselves, and then ghostwriters. So as we introduce the concept of cookie ghostwriting, which are the ones that are related to cookies that are set for a party, imagine the website that the user is visiting at the moment, but are actually created by a different entity, a script loaded for an advertiser, for example. This is very common, and this is something that it has to be analyzed in order to understand the full ecosystem. So if we go with an example of this, so there is a page that has some image and video hosting service that loads a script from a domain belonging to a company that provides digital trust services. This script creates a cookie, and in reality, they are not creating the cookie in his domain. They are creating the cookie in the image and video hosting service. This situation, it was actually a specific case that we found in our dataset. There are many other examples that we will later also explain. So if we specifically analyze the distribution of the cookies that we find between the different types, we can see that third-party cookies and ghosted cookies are the most common ones, and that first-party cookies are actually a very small percentage. But if we analyze in how many pages are these cookies created, we can see that the first-party cookies are the ones that there are more pages, and third-party cookies and ghosted cookies are actually in a similar number of pages. However, websites that include third-party or ghosted cookies typically include more of these than first-party ones. Moreover, on websites that include them, they are created by an average of around 3 different actors, and this suggests that ghosted cookies are used in a similar way to third-party ones. Now we analyze the senders. Here we start with an example of a creation change with 4 different resources, and the last one is the one that is creating the cookie. If this specific resource is the one that is sending the cookie, we'll classify as own sender because he's sending his own cookie. But if the one that is sending the cookie on the other side is someone that was in the chain of creation but is not the one creating the cookie, we'll classify it as in-chain sender. And then there is one extra case, the case that some resource that was literally not related to the creation chain of the cookie. In this case, we'll call it off-chain sender. Now, if we analyze the receivers, have other categories. So the first one will be very similar. So the one that is creating the cookie will be on receiver. In a similar way, the one that is in the chain of the creation is the one receiving. We'll call it in-chain receiver. But now we have an extra category that is in-chain self-receiver. That is the concept of that specific in-chain receiver is also the one that is sending the cookie to himself. And as before, the last case will be some resource that it was not involved in the creation of the cookie is the one that is receiving. So it will be off-chain receiver. And it's also off-chain self-receiver if he is the one that is sending the cookie to himself. The fact that many companies own several domains open the doors to misleading attributions. So therefore, to avoid pollution of our results, we aggregate the nodes that belong to the same organization. So for example, here we have Google Analytics and DoubleClick. They are two Google-related domains, but they are two different domains. So what we do is we join these two in a single node that we call Google. So in this case, we'll not incorrectly attribute off-chain receiver, for example, if they are both of the same company. How we do this? We adopt two strategies. The first one is based on 3 manually curated lists, and the other one is based on an automated best effort approach we designed based on DNS data, internet routing registries, and WHOIS records. So let's give some examples of the things that we are talking about. This is a case of on sender to off-chain receiver. So the one that is creating the cookie is the one sending the cookie and is sending to someone that it was not in the creation chain. So we have a website that is a video game website that includes an advertiser that creates a cookie. In this case, specifically a ghosted cookie. So it's creating the cookie in the name of the gaming website, not in his domain name. And then what he's doing is getting this cookie that they just created in the gaming website and sending to another company that is not related. Probably because there is some agreement between the two companies to send this information. This will be off-chain receiver because they were not related in the creation. Then we have off-chain self-receiver. In this case, we have a video chat website that has some script that is doing some user analysis, and also some advertiser. This advertiser is creating some identifiable cookie. And the thing is that this user analysis script is getting this information from the advertising company and sending to himself. In this case, this is why it will be classified as an off-chain self-receiver, is the one that is getting the cookie and is the one that is also receiving the cookie, even if he was not related in the creation of that cookie, because it was only part of the advertiser. Then we have in-chain self-receiver. In this case, we have a news page that includes some sponsored articles, those typical articles that you see at the bottom of the page. This specific company is the one that includes an advertiser. And this advertiser creates a cookie. So the sponsored ads company gets this cookie that he was in the chain of the creation of the cookie because he is the one that included the advertiser, gets the cookie and sends it to himself, probably for matching purposes. Then we have intermediaries. The method that we designed here also enables us to emphasize the role of middlemen, which are not directly involved in the cookie-related activities, either creating or sharing, but are responsible for initiating subsequent requests that they will end up there. So we see that 62% of the creation chains and 48% of the sharing chains, they have at least one intermediate. So that's it. That is something that is very common. Moreover, instead of analyzing for the chains, we analyze for the websites. We see that 43% of the websites, they have at least 3 different intermediates in the cookie creation and sharing chains, which is a lot, probably more than most of the people was imagining. We analyze the actors and the roles, which are the actors that are following the roles. As we say, they are creators, senders and receivers, and intermediaries. So creators is the most common role between most prevalent actors. But there are also actors that they rarely create cookies, but they often act as senders and receivers. Moreover, even if these are the main roles, they also have some roles that are intermediaries that they behave in many companies that they have this. So they have creator plus intermediate or sender plus intermediate and different parts. It's important to say that here we are saying this general overview of these different roles, but in the paper we analyze the top actors that are in the ecosystem, and we say specifically which of the roles that we were describing before are taking in how many websites, which percentage of situations that they are included on the RDs. Moreover, due to time constraints, we are not able to explain many of the things that we did in the paper, but I was thinking that it is interesting to at least make some comment on them that are linkage graph. So we analyzed how the different companies and the different roles that these companies are taking are related. So some of these linkage were not visible before because of the methodology. Some of them, they are visible because of our methodology, which are the different new connections that we see. We can see that some they work as dispatchers, that they are connected to many other companies, sending information or receiving information, for example. We also analyze the concept of cookie collisions. So it's the idea that as multiple scripts are running in the same page or in the same iframe, for example, they can rewrite the cookies from other actors, and this can make collisions. So in the paper, we analyze how common is this. We say which are different cases on examples that we found in the wild, and we can understand why this is happening. Also, we have the idea of website categories. So we analyzed how the categories of the website and also from the trackers are related, even in the linkage graph, for example, in order to understand which are the categories that are more related to having cookies on specific types of cookies, or which are the companies that they are related to more other companies based on the categories, for example. So thank you very much. And this was the presentation of Journey to the Center of the Cookie Ecosystem. I hope you liked it. I leave my email and my website in order to allow you to contact me if you have any other question. Once more, thank you very much.